Sahih al-Bukhari 1331. Narrated Samura bin Jundab. I offered the funeral prayer behind the Prophet, for a woman who had died during childbirth, and he stood up by the middle of the coffin. Sahih al-Bukhari 1332. Narrated Samura bin Jundab. I offered the funeral prayer behind the Prophet, for a woman who had died during childbirth, and he stood up by the middle of the coffin. Sahih al-Bukhari 1333. Narrated Abu Hurairah. Allah's Messenger, informed about the news of the death of a Najash on the day he died. He went out with us to the Musalla, and we aligned in rows, and he said 4 takbirs for in Najashi's funeral prayer. Sahih al-Bukhari 1334. Narrated Jabir. The Prophet offered the funeral prayer of Ashama and Najash and said 4 takbir. Sahih al-Bukhari 1335. Narrated Talha bin Abdullah bin Auf. I offered the funeral prayer behind Ibn Abbas, and he recited al-Fatiha and said, "You should know that it, i.e. recitation of al-Fatiha, is the tradition of the Prophet, Muhammad." Sahih al-Bukhari 1336. Narrated Sulayman ash-Shaybani. I heard Ash-Shubai saying, I was told by a man who had passed with the Prophet, p.b.u.h, by a grave that was separate from the other graves, that he, the Prophet, led them in the prayer and they prayed behind him. I said, O Abu Amr, who narrated that to you? He replied, Ibn Abbas. Sahih al-Bukhari 1337. Narrated Abu Hurairah. A black person, a male or a female, used to clean the mosque and then died. The Prophet, p.b.u.h, did not know about it. One day the Prophet remembered him and said, "What happened to that person?" The people replied, "O Allah's Messenger, he died." He said, "Why did you not inform me?" They said, "His story was so and so," i.e. regarded him as insignificant. He said, "Show me his grave." He then went to his grave and offered the funeral prayer. Sahih al-Bukhari 1338. Narrated Anas. The Prophet said, when a human being is laid in his grave and his companions return and he even hears their footsteps, 2 angels come to him and make him sit and ask him, "What did you use to say about this man, Muhammad?" He will say, "I testify that he is Allah's slave and his apostle." Then it will be said to him, "Look at your place in the hellfire. Allah has given you a place in paradise instead of it." The Prophet added, the dead person will see both his places. But a non-believer or a hypocrite will say to the angels, "I do not know, but I used to say what the people used to say." It will be said to him, "Neither did you know nor did you take the guidance, by reciting the Quran, but..." Then he will be hit with an iron hammer between his 2 ears, and he will cry, and that cry will be heard by whatever approaches him except human beings and jinns. Sahih al-Bukhari 1339. Narrated Abu Hurairah. The angel of death was sent to Moses, and when he went to him, Moses slapped him severely, spoiling one of his eyes. The angel went back to his Lord, and said, "You sent me to a slave who does not want to die." Allah restored his eye and said, "Go back and tell him, i.e. Moses, to place his hand over the back of an ox, for he will be allowed to live for a number of years equal to the number of hairs coming under his hand." So the angel came to him and told him the same. Then Moses asked, "O my Lord, what will be then?" He said, "Death will be then." He said, "Let it be, now." He asked Allah that he bring him near the sacred land at a distance of a stone's throw. Allah's Messenger, p.b.u.h, said, "Were I there I would show you the grave of Moses by the way near the red sandhill." Sahih al-Bukhari 1340. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet, p.b.u.h, offered the funeral prayer of a man one night after he was buried. He and his companions stood up for the prayer. He had asked them about him before standing, saying, "Who is this?" They said, "He is so and so and was buried last night." So all of them offered the funeral prayer.